Hello and welcome to the FPL Stats Fix in association with fantasyfootballfix.com. My name is Tom Campbell. You can find me on Twitter at utterlytc. Now, in this video, we are going to be looking specifically at players who may be able to help you get your squad together if you're intending to use that free hit chip for game week 27, which is a strategy which I know is going to be super popular amongst many FPL managers. So the idea of today's video is going to get to look at some stats for the teams that have a great fixture in game week 27. There will be some content, of course, for people who aren't intending to use it, but really we're going to focus in on just this game week and see if there are any stats which can identify players for you to target. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Hi everyone and welcome to the FPL Stats Fix. As I say, this video is going to be a little bit different from what we've done in the past in that we're only going to be looking at a specific game week and not looking too much further down the road. So we're actually going to be targeting game week 27, which as we know is a double. I think the majority of the game weeks for the rest of the season have a chance to be some kind of oddity there with double game weeks to be rearranged and blanks to be challenges that we need to navigate, and certainly game week 27 presents that opportunity with Burnley having a double game week. But before we get into that, guys, I should just quickly say I really hope everyone's having a good game week 26. I know it's still live. I am recording early on in the week, so it's still very much live. So I hope everyone's had a good game week so far over the weekend and that they can pick up more points for the remaining fixtures midweek. Now, this video specifically, we're going to be looking at a bunch of teams which the fantasyfootballfix.com algorithms have basically identified as having great opportunities for points in game week 27. And the way that I'm going to tackle this is to split it out between defense and attack. Now, obviously, with the free hit chip being used, budget isn't going to be top of the sort of challenges that you're going to need to navigate. But there will still be some opportunities for some enabling players, because I do think that when you come to put your team together, it does tend to be that you can be that 0.1 million short. So I'm going to try and identify players who might be able to help you there as well. So the way that we're going to look at this is the Fixture Analysis tool on fantasyfootballfix.com. Basically, the game week range is normally elongated. So I've taken that down to just look at game week 27, which is the one that we're interested in here. Obviously, with a free hit chip, you're going to be returning to your team in game week 28. So you needn't look beyond that. And initially going to look at defense difficulty here. And the teams that I'm going to focus in on are these top three teams. So by all means, guys, go down and look beyond that if you want to. This is just to give you an idea of the sort of analysis you can do using fantasyfootballfix.com. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be looking at Southampton, who've been on a great run of form recently. Burnley, as I say, had that terrific result over Brighton in game week 26 and have been playing much better recently, and also have this attractive double in terms of an away match against Crystal Palace, who we know aren't scoring many goals themselves, and they have a home match against Leicester, who have been in really troubled form for some period of time now as well. So it's a nice double for Burnley to tackle and to target, I should say, as well for FPL managers. And Man United, who quietly have been much improved under Ralph Rangnick, I should say, in terms of the results that they've been gathering. So the analysis that I'm going to be doing from a defensive perspective will focus in on these teams. We'll then move on and take a look at the attack and look at some custom stats that I created as well. So that's the plan for today, guys. So Southampton, Burnley, and Man United. Now, what I've done here is using the Opta Stats Sandbox tool, which is the one that I've been sort of using most frequently. I've reduced the game week range here to look at game week 24. So we're approaching game week 27, game week 24, including the current game week as well. Game week 26, guys, I have done that. And as I say, we're just going to be looking at defenders here for these three teams, Burnley, Man United, and Southampton. So that's the way that I've done it. My preferred method of looking at stats here is to look at per game rather than totals. So scrolling down, there are a number of different things that you can focus on. I've moved away from defending because we've kind of already seen that the algorithm is predicting that defensively these are teams to target. And I'm actually looking at expected points. So I filtered this on expected points, and straight away here we've got the type of player that I think would be really appealing to a manager on a free hit, potentially, if you want to be a little bit different. So we know that the fix is suggesting that they've got a great chance of a clean sheet in their upcoming fixture in Game Week 27. And Timo Livramento has found his way back to fitness. Now, he's a player who probably would have fallen off the radar for a lot of managers because of his injury, which has kept him out for some period of time. But we know that, as I say, Southampton are in a rich vein of form. They've really been playing well under Hasenhüttl recently. And this price here of 4.3 million, guys, could actually really help you better enable the rest of your squad to take shape. Yes, the minutes would be slightly concerned out of context here, but obviously he's been returning to the team in terms of his return from injury, I should say, and is actually featured in the last 2 game weeks. And this expected FPL points returns of just touching 7 there is super encouraging. So what I wanted to do there as well is just to remind you guys as well. So using the assistant manager feature here, I've just pulled up some stats to remind us of what Livramento would have been like or sort of previously brought to our team. So you can see he's been missing for a number of game weeks, and he's just come back into the team. 19 minutes in the game away at Man United, which they impressed in that game, and then the 90-minute game against Everton. So he's found his way back into the team. If we look back, you can sort of get an idea of the price was there. The returns weren't great initially, or rather at the end of that run when Southampton were in less sort of solid form, I would say. But if we apply a slightly longer lens here, you can start to see the sort of returns that we were all super happy to be getting from Timo Livramento. Of course, started this season out, guys, as a £4 million defender. Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? But yeah, lots of returns there, right around that 6 markers, and when they were getting a clean sheet. He does like to get forward, as we know. Attempted assists, shots on target. You can start to see these numbers improving as he became more embedded in the team. So Timo Livramento is someone I was quite encouraged to see pop out in the analysis there. So somebody for you to think about, guys. Now, from a Man United perspective, Harry Maguire's come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism recently amongst the fans. But Ralph Rangnick's been on record saying he's going to keep the captaincy, he's going to stay on the team. So 5.4 million there, he scored against Leeds, and he does win an awful lot of headers. I don't think he's necessarily the best at directing those headers offensively from corners. But if you wanted a Man United coverage in Game Week 27, then Fix is suggesting from an expected FPL points returns, he's the one that they favour over Luke Shaw, would be secondary to that. I did just want to mention as well, guys. I'll just scroll down so you can look at the other names here as and when I'm speaking. But Mr. Collins at Burnley is another one in this £4.3 million price range. Now, let's just pull up in the same way that I did for Livramento. So Fix again suggesting a solid 4.6, sort of approaching the 5 points per game. And we know they've got a double game week. Now, sorry, that's Tino Livramento's. But Connor Roberts' stats here, slightly, it's 4.5 million. I should apologies for that, guys. I think this is somebody who's not necessarily going to be attracting too much attention either. I think that historically we've tended to gravitate more to the central defenders that we're familiar with in terms of Tarkowski, who we know is recovering from COVID at the moment, and Ben Mee, respectively. But if we look at this run, we know that Sean Dyche is a manager who really likes to respects continuity in the team, and he's been playing 90 minutes per game since game week 23. So there should be a degree of confidence that he'd keep his spot there. Double game weeks are probably going to throw that slightly into doubt, I would suggest, in terms of the actual minutes and the frequency of games, just in terms of recovery and what have you. But look, it's another budget price there, and I do think actually there's a possibility that he might go under the radar. So if you're looking for that differential, guys, he was someone who leapt out at me as well. We can go back to the stats here, looking through the names here. He was just somebody who kind of stood out for me. Oh, I'll tell you why that was 4.5. That's Connor Roberts rather than Collins. Apologies, guys. Let's revert that. So I think Roberts from a 4.5 million, who you're paying a little bit more, has got that security of minutes, as we know he's played, as I mentioned, multiple games in a row. If I just change that now to look at Collins instead, which shouldn't be too difficult for me to do here. Yeah, we can grab him now. This is why that was 4.3. This is someone I was going to guard a little bit against, guys, because Nathan Collins, if you're looking for that saving, cost saving, I'd be a little bit wary, guys. I've just mentioned Timo Livramento at 4.3 million, and Nathan Collins is the same. This was a cover for an injury. So whilst Burnley were super impressive in terms of the result that they got in their match against Brighton, and we know that, as I say, Deitch does like to stick with a winning team, I would be wary about Nathan Collins, particularly as you do have Connor Roberts there right behind it, and just 0.2 million less. And the Fix algorithm is suggesting that there's not a huge degree of difference between Collins and Roberts at 4.6, so around the sort of 4.5 and 3.94. So manager cool there, I would say, but in terms of the difference in price, I would personally slightly prefer the security of selection I'd expect from Roberts. The other names, I guess, are a little bit more familiar in terms of Walker Peters. I think we've talked about him on Stats Fix before. Luke Shaw is more known. Diego Dallo, I would be a little bit worried about as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka came back into the team against Leeds and did reasonably well. We know that he sort of preferred defensively. Diego Dallo more from an attacking perspective. So I would be steering away from the Man United fullbacks. And actually, I would recommend the same from on the left-hand side in terms of Shaw as well. Man United play Atletico Madrid in midweek. So in terms of the minutes for these fullbacks, it's going to be a bit of a lottery there to manage the game that they have against Watford. So those would be the recommendations from a defensive perspective, guys, from those three teams, which Fix are saying are the preferred ones to target from a defensive perspective. Now, moving on to look at the attacking ones. So if I just flick the Fixture Analyser to look at attack difficulty rather than defense, I'm just going to apply slightly more teams here. And I did find this really interesting. So it is not the norm to see Burnley at the top of an attacking fixture difficulty rating, believe you me. As we know, they're not super potent. That is not to take anything away from the 3-0 victory they had on the weekend from a low XG, admittedly. Weghorst is a player I'm sure we'll come on and talk about in a moment. But these are the teams. I did find this really interesting, actually. So Burnley, Southampton, Man United, Brentford, who I have included, Brighton and Spurs are the ones there. I think Newcastle could come into your thinking as well. There are some doubts over Alanson Maximin in terms of the injury that kept him out from the weekend. Haven't actually had an update from Howe yet, so keep an eye on the other videos coming from fantasyfootballfix.com and make sure that you're aware of his status before you think about bringing him in. I was really impressed with Joe Willock in terms of his performance from the weekend, so he could be someone to look at. But just looking at these teams, Burnley, Southampton, Man United, Brentford, Brighton, Spurs, these are the teams that have the best fixtures according to fantasyfootballfix.com. So they're the ones that we're going to be looking at. I have included Brentford, but despite this fixture that Fix is saying is positive in terms of a home match against Newcastle, who remain in a relegation battle, there's not a lot there, is there, guys? We know that Ivan Toney didn't feature in the last game, and they're just not a team which are super threatening. I know that they wiped out a clean sheet for us all in game week 26 in the 95th minute, which was particularly painful, but not a team I'm super excited about. But the other teams, definitely. Let's take a look at how they play out. So what I did here is to use the custom stats builder on fantasyfootballfix.com, which effectively allows you to create bespoke tables. I haven't included a description here, but I will make this table public, guys, so you will be able to play around with it yourself if you'd like to, once you've subscribed to Fix. And effectively, this is just players to target in blank game week. Not blank game week, excuse me. I guess it is a blank game week, of course. We don't have all teams featuring. So in blank game week 27, excuse me, I've included, just looking at the last 4 game weeks, I really wanted this to be more indicative of form, using these teams that I mentioned that Fix are targeting from, or recommending from an attack perspective, guys. So I'm showing averages per game, and then I've just pulled out my favourite metrics. There are a heap that you can choose from, and there's some really interesting names here as well. So this one I haven't put any budgetary constraints in at all. So this is basically anyone. You could be the most expensive player in the game, and potentially you would feature here as well. So let's focus on attempted assists. Now, Bruno Fernandes is a player who has been a bit of a stalwart in teams over the course of the last 2 years, albeit it's been a bit more problematic since Cristiano Ronaldo came back into the team. There's been some school of thought there that suggests he doesn't play quite as well when he's in the team. Not something I subscribe to personally. And, it was another haul for Bruno against Leeds in game week 26. So in terms of that creative role and attempted assists figure, so not expected assists, a slightly different metric here, but the number of assists he's attempting to create per game, that's awesome. That's a great stat. So that's super encouraging. Like in terms of the expected assists, that relies on the chance creation quality, to whom it's being passed to, etc. So, but even that of an expected assist of approaching 0.5 per game is absolutely fine. But Bruno Fernandes, one of the more premium assets that you could be looking to be excited about in terms of game week 27. I'm going to keep it on this filter for the time being because James Ward-Prowse is someone who I think we should all be thinking about as well. Just going to pull up his data here as well. Now, this run, going back to game week 27, is really encouraging. He's a mid-price midfielder. We know that Southampton have been playing well. He's a set-piece wizard, of course, and the points have been pretty regular in their returns for some period of time now. And these stats that we have available on the kind of pop-out here for Ward-Prowse in terms of shots on target and attempted assists, they're all super encouraging, actually, guys. So I really like James Ward-Prowse as an enabling option. We know that Norwich have been improving under Dean Smith, and they do have a reasonable chance of believing that they can escape relegation. I would still say that that's unlikely, but go back multiple game weeks and they've been written off. So they're a tougher nut to crack these days. But James Ward-Prowse at 6.5 million here is fine at that price, and I do think represents an opportunity for assist points potentially, as well as those shots on target from set pieces as well. Heung-min Son, I think, will be on everyone's lips anyway after the performance against Man City at the Etihad on the weekend. And if you're free hitting, clearly he's going to be someone that you're enthused about as well. Not just from this attempted assist perspective, but more direct routes to goal as well. So there are some other names there that we've already touched on in terms of Ronaldo and Weghorst. We do need to watch that injury status. I believe there's already been a quote from Sean Dyche suggesting that he is likely to be available, but we do need that confirmed. Again, I'm recording early in the midweek, so just keep an eye on that status on fantasyfootballfix.com before you look to bring him into your team on free hit or otherwise. Jadon Sancho is a name that I'm actually going to throw out there as well. Look, I think he has been one of Man United's best success stories under Ralph Rangnick, actually, in terms of more recently the return. So you can see a 9-pointer followed by an 11-pointer is absolutely fantastic for a midfielder, or for any attacker or any player, actually. But just in terms of the quality of his performance and security of selection, actually. So he's operating primarily on that left-hand side. He was signed with the intention of being on the right-hand side. Clearly, there's been the Mason Greenwood situation, which has caused him to, or Man United to need to rethink that, and he's found himself on the left-hand side. But it hasn't actually caused him a huge problem, actually, in terms of those returns. So the number of shots on target, attempted assists, etc., are encouraging for him. Yes, he's a price that's going to need some thought for you to work him into the team, but he is someone who I think I would be pretty excited about. So keep your eye on the midweek game against Atletico to make sure that there's no injury concerns or minutes. I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about. I do think he is in Rangnick's best team at the moment. I would expect him to play this weekend in the Watford match. So Jadon Sancho may be someone to think about there. I've been much encouraged by his recent performances. I'm going to filter on some of the other stats here. Oh, before I do that as well, Paul Pogba is a slightly cheaper option here at 7.4 million. He was taken off at around about, I think it was 66 minutes or so. Let's just have a quick look. Right on 66 minutes against Leeds, and he played really well. The points returns aren't encouraging. This is more sort of indicative from how he's been playing and the confidence factor. I prefer Sancho, personally. We know that he does have the Hall possibility in his repertoire, Pogba, although it's been a long time since we've seen that, I should hasten to add. It would be a huge differential, huge kind of punt, I guess. I prefer Sancho, but in terms of his actual confidence in the performance and how Man United are improving, someone again to think about. But I personally believe there are better options out there. The other attacking players here, like Elianusi, look, I think a cheaper price is absolutely fine, but James Ward-Prowse would be the recommendation there instead. I like expected FPL points. So we've talked about this previously, so I'm going to filter that. And lo and behold, we see Sancho, who I mentioned there, which is awesome to see there. I really think he could represent an interesting opportunity for players on free hit, and potentially those who are looking longer term, though I think it would be more of a short-term player. Bruno Fernandes we've talked about. Look, Webster, 4.4 million is such a great price. And we've got an update. It is super helpful from Fix here to give the update here from the recent press release in relation to what Potter said for Adam Webster, which is encouraging. But look, you're going to need to probably keep an eye on the any updates coming there, because they do have other options at the back there. And Brighton were not a team necessarily that we were super enthused about defensively from the fixed recommendation. They just shipped 3 to Burnley, but 4.4 million could be something that ultimately may even fill a bench spot. And in terms of the expected FPL returns, he's featuring highly, as are Messrs Son and Kane. Look, I don't think I need to go into any great degree of detail about Heung-min Son or Harry Kane. I think people will know what they're about and the opportunities. I suspect that they would always feature in a free hit team for game week 27, and the expected FPL points, there's not a lot between them at all, in fact, for the game week period that I've been looking at here. So yeah, absolutely advocate for both of those players to be considered in terms of coming into your team. So those are the names that are sort of jumping out at you from a sort of more attacking perspective. I think we've talked about the majority. The only one we didn't mention was Che Adams. So there's been a lot of encouragement and enthusiasm behind Brozier, the man on loan from Chelsea, because he's been so impressive in terms of his performance. Not necessarily the returns, but I don't necessarily think that's any criticism on him as a player. Che Adams is going to cost you a bit more at 6.9 million. But look, this is quite encouraging. Over the last 3 game weeks, 7, 9, 5, you'd be happy with that as an average. The game week, as I mentioned, is a home match against Norwich. So managers could be tempted to even look at the double up there. I would suggest that that's probably going to be unlikely, especially if Weghorst is past fit, because I suspect that Harry Kane will feature in one of the other selections there. So Weghorst and Kane, and you're looking at one other. So it will be an interesting quandary for managers to ponder there. But in terms of those expected FPL points, Che Adams is featuring highly, and we haven't seen Brozier there. So that could be something to think about if budget does allow, guys. Now, speaking of budget, what I thought would be useful is to do the same type of analysis, but to just apply a bit of a filter here. So I created another table here, guys, budget players to target in blank game week 27. Same 12 stats, same game week range, but I've basically told Fix to ignore any players who cost over 8 million. And I think what this basically does for me is, when you're putting together your free hit team, you're filling them with the likes of, Jadon Sancho and Harry Kane, Heung-Son Min, etc. There could be a budgetary challenge. So what I thought I would do in relation to this part of the stats fix is to reduce that. So straight away we can reduce the scroll down. You can start seeing the names here. Some slightly more rogue picks here, but my boy Timo Livramento is at the top there. So definitely someone we can take I'll be encouraged about. Now, let's filter on which one should we do at? We will do expected FPL points is always my favourite there. And there are some names that we haven't thought about or haven't mentioned already. I know I mentioned him fleetingly here, but I did look to include Newcastle in this because they were right at the bottom of that range. But I just thought this would be someone who I would have expected to have seen there based on his performance over the weekend. So if you're struggling for budget and you want to take more of a flyer, then Joe Willock, 5.7 million. This is not going to be, previously no great shakes, right? But there's just an indication here that he may have found some form. Now, Alan St. Maximin did not play on in the previous game, in game week 26, and may come back into the team. There may be a bit of a reshuffle, but I wouldn't expect him to miss out, certainly because of the way that he performed in that game. 10-point haul. He's played 90 minutes in each of the last 4 game weeks. You can see there on screen. This is what stands out to me, guys. 5 shots, that's great volume. Shots on target, you know, he'd hope to be doing a bit better than that. But in terms of the actual volume of shots, it's on the increase. And that from an attacking perspective. And of course, we need to bear in mind as well, he's a midfielder, right? Joe Willock. So this is somebody who I do think presents an interesting opportunity and an interesting thought there if you are looking to supplement that midfielder with a kind of mid-price, range. He had such a great end to the season last season. He's been diabolical for months, but so have Newcastle, and they've actually found some form since the January transfer window came to a close, and they were able to augment that squad with some more players. So, yeah, Joe Willock, player who really kind of stood out for me there as well. And you can see some other names on screen here, guys. Again, I filtered this on expected FPL points over the last 4 game weeks. Diego Dalot, as I say, I'd be a little bit wary about that as Aaron Wan-Bissaka played the last game. Harry Maguire, we've mentioned already. We've mentioned James Ward-Prowse as well. There are some other options here as well in terms of as we go down the list here. Luke Shaw, as I said, you know, the fullbacks there is I think a little bit more problematic because they do have options there in terms of Alex Telles on the left-hand side, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Dalot on the right. So maybe something to think about there. And look, Weghorst, I'm sure everyone's super hopeful that he can make it. If he does, I'm sure he'll be in pretty much everyone's team who are able to use that free hit chip going into blank game week 27. Last part of the video, guys, I just thought I'd give you a quick hint or a quick look, I guess, glance at what Fix is predicting. So I've looked at the predicted points and stats page or tool on fantasyfootballfix.com, reduced the range again here, guys, down to game week 27, and filtered, you know, top to bottom. So Cristiano Ronaldo still does feature at the top there. It's going to cost you a fortune, 12.4 million. He's not been in great goal scoring form, has he? Points haven't really been there either. But Fix is still suggesting, in terms of expected points, guys, he does still top that. So that could be someone who you go back to the well once more for. Guys, you know, his record speaks for itself historically. Let's see how he gets on in the Champions League, I guess. Nick Pope, from a defensive perspective, I'm sure will feature. We haven't really talked about goalkeepers in this team, but certainly Nick Pope, from having that double game week, he's assured of his selection, injury or illness notwithstanding. You'd expect him to play both games with a lot of confidence there. You'd be confident that he'd play both. And then there are names that we've talked through already, but I did just want to give you a hint there in terms of, from a stats perspective, these are what Fix are predicting. These are the players that Fix are predicting are going to be returning the most points there. Aaron Lennon, throwback there. Aaron Lennon at 4.9 million. You know, if we were confident he was going to play both games, you know, fine at 4.9 million. But the names are ones that we've been looking at. So our stats are backing these up, guys, aren't they? In relation to Jadon Sancho, Che Adams, Son, for example. There was Mr. Roberts as well, and the names that we've already talked through. So hopefully some food for thought there, guys. And look, I know not everyone is free hitting, but a lot of these players, guys, will actually be super relevant to longer term planning as well. So definitely players to think about there, I would think, in terms of your longer term planning. And certainly if you are free hitting, I wish you the very best of luck. Always an exciting one to throw that chip in and see how it may land. And you should have a great team set up to return lots and lots of points in game week 27. I hope that's how it plays out. Look, if you've enjoyed the video, guys, please smash a like on your way out. Please subscribe to fantasyfootballfix.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well if you've not already done so. Click that notification bell as well. You will get notifications each and every time we put a video out. There's a lot of great content coming from the likes of Callum, Ross and Eddie, who are putting out all kinds of great content. So do stay tuned to the channel, guys. Smash a like on your way out, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.